Gentlewoman's time has expired. We now go to the gentleman from New York, Mr. Garbarino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, it's good to see you. It's great you just asked about junk fees because one of my colleagues asked about it before as well, and I'm trying to get an actual answer. Are fees for negative business transactions, late fees, overdraft fees that are part of the contractual services provided by financial institutions to customers who sign up for products such as credit cards and checking accounts, would you consider those junk fees? Would you consider, if someone signs up for a credit card or a bank account, a late fee or an overdraft fee?
Well, some of it is how it's assessed. So we, for example, I mentioned those two enforcement actions. Sometimes they assessed it by mixing around the transactions. Sometimes they didn't even deliver it. So the analysis.
I guess if they, I agree. If they don't deliver, if there's no overdraft and they charge an overdraft fee, that's a problem. But if the statement says if you're late with your payment, or if the contract says if you're late with your payment, we're charging your late fee, or if you overdraft and it's a legitimate overdraft, we're charging an overdraft fee. Are those fees?
I think I'm in agreement. I'm in agreement with the spirit of what you're saying. The issue is that it can't override federal law, so there can't be deception around it. There's other congressional prohibitions, and again, like Congresswoman Pedersen said, I do want to recognize the industry has made some real moves on this, which I think are commendable.
I get that, but late fees and overdraft fees aren't blatantly junk fees.
Well, it depends on how they're
agree,
being
but
employed. Yeah. I take your point. Look, the way we define junk fees are ones that are not subject to the competitive process, really are hidden, or are sometimes for things that are not even services or not even provided.
I get that.
So we try and focus on where it's illegal, fraudulent, but there's other places where you have a lot of honest banks out there competing on the upfront price, and then others building a business model off of something.
I understand that. My point is, if a contract says if you're late paying your credit card statement and somebody's a week late, we're going to charge you $25. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, well, it also has to comply with federal law.
Of course, yes. Yeah. All right, I want to move to something else. I want to talk about an issue that it's related to the Fair Credit Reporting Act proposal on the data brokers. From what I understand, the CFPB is considering significant changes to the FCRA, including broadening the scope of what constitutes a consumer reporting agency to basically any entity that compiles and makes available consumer financial information, whether or not it's used for eligibility decisions. Currently, the Bureau's authority is limited to regulations that are necessary and appropriate to carry out the objectives of the FCRA. However, the recent FCRA SBRIFA includes broad and novel definition of data broker, which seems to contradict decades of regulatory guidance, case law, and congressional intent. It also creates conflicts with the KYC requirements. Given those contradictions, where in the CFPB's limited rulemaking authority does it have the ability to create the new definition of data broker?
Yeah, so I don't agree with what you just shared there. One of the pieces of input you all have given us is, try and avoid where you can regulation by enforcement. There's a lot of companies out there that meet the definition and activities of a consumer reporting agency. Yes, we could go and litigate it, bring enforcement actions. The goal is in some ways to provide some clarity about the business model of a consumer reporting agency, which now you have a lot of different firms that are collecting these dossiers on us, and to create a level playing field around it. You mentioned the issue of KYC fraud. As I shared with Congressman Fitzgerald, the chair, we are taking that very seriously and looking at all the uses of it. But I think we need to be careful about data brokers often compiling information about Americans and often selling our most sensitive data to bad actors overseas, including to defraud people.
I understand, but I just want to make sure that where though. So you think you already have the authority. CFPB already has the authority to do all this with the new data.
Yeah, because we have to make sure that we're administering the Fair Credit Reporting Act, and if you look at even the legislative history.
So under the Fair Credit, you believe you have it under the.
Yeah. Well, we can't propose a rule on anything that we wouldn't have it. Yeah.
I understand. I think there's a disagreement of whether or not.
Well, we can talk about it. I'm happy to talk about it.
All right. I appreciate that. I have another question, but I'm down to 10 seconds, and I know I won't get it out. I will submit it to you for the record.
Sure.
Sir. Thank you. I yield back.